And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. But he that knew not, and did commit things worthy of stripes, shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. God is telling us here in this passage that if we have been given much, much will be expected from us. And may I say today, we understand this principle. There are many times that we'll see a young person or a teenager misbehaving, and the words will come out of our mouth or the mouths of those around us. That person knows better. Have you ever said that? They know better than that. What does that mean? That means they have been trained better. They've had somebody invest in them to know better. And you expect more of them because more training, more upbringing, more investment has been made in them. May I say to you here today, you are one of them. You have been given much. You say, well, Brother Hauser, I've not been trained like others have. Oh, but we have all been given much. You and I have been given much love. God tells us that he loved us with a great love. You see, you and I have been given much love, and as a result of that, God expects us to love others much. We've been given much forgiveness. God tells us that we ought to forgive even as Christ forgave us. Boy, we have been forgiven from sin against God. I wonder, who can you not forgive? You see, you've been given much forgiveness, and I believe that God is going to expect for you to forgive an awful lot. You know, we've been given much mercy. We've been given much patience. We've been shown much compassion. You say, what's the point you're trying to get at, Brother Hauser? Well, God has given us much of all of these things. And so as we've been invested in with compassion and with love and with mercy and with patience, so too must we also, are we accountable to show that same compassion, to show that same patience, that same love, that same forgiveness and forbearance. May I say, many of you, God's given you a lot of training. There are many that I think just in our class, there are many that are college educated. There are many that have been trained how to lead souls to Christ. They've been trained how to live for God. They've been trained how to lead others to God. And may I say to you today, you're accountable to use that training. Much has been invested in you, and so much will be required of you. You say, well, Brother Hauser, I have not had any formal Bible college training. I've not even been saved very long. I've not been in church very long. I'm just really getting into this Christianity. Well, could I say to you, you too have been given much. You know, I think of some in our class that you may not have been given much training, but you've been given much trial. You've been given much heartache in life. You've been given much difficulty, whether physical or spiritual. And as God gives you those heartaches, as God gives you those difficulties, it would behoove you to realize that God is preparing you to help somebody else through their trial. I think of those in our class that have gone through trials and hardships. I think of many that have faced physical problems. I'm thinking of a few right now that are laid up in bed in pain. And I tell you, God intends for you to use that trial later. God gave you that trial so that you might use that trial to help others. I think of many in our class. They've gone through much turmoil. Maybe a child who's rebelling. Maybe a spouse who's been unfaithful. Maybe a pastor or another Christian that has disappointed you. You've been given difficulty. May I say today, God expects you to use that difficulty to help others. I'll never forget it. After our daughter this last year went to heaven, My wife, she was sitting on the edge of the bed weeping. And she said, honey, I've got to figure out how I can get back to normal. There are people that need to know how to handle loss. And I don't want to have to tell them that I'm not over my loss. I don't want to have to tell them that I haven't made it through. I want to be able to help them in their time of need. May I tell you, everything you've been given in life, whether training or trial, whether investment or tragedy, God has given to you, and He will require, He will expect for you to use that training, to use that trial, to use that investment, to use that difficulty to help others in your life. God tells us, to whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. Let's determine to use that which God has given us to serve him and help others. We love you, folks. We'll see you tonight at 7.